Welcome to the Best You podcast, where we explore the journey of inner peace, harmony, and joy that comes from living authentically. Every week, we will dive into transformative conversations that describe both the way you can create behavioral change for yourself and how to create the conditions that promote peace, harmony, and joy around you. Whether you're seeking balance, deeper relationships, or a spark of inspiration, you're in the right place.
Welcome back to the Best You, and we have another fun topic. This is one that I think probably everybody has people in their life like this, but the topic today is living with people who don't make sense. And oftentimes it's people who are in our family or people who are our friend group, people that we care about, that we like, that we love, and yet they say things that just don't make sense. And how do you not get frustrated? How do you not get infuriated? How do you not get bored? How do you not get, whatever it is, turned off? We're going to try to help you with that today because we believe we got some techniques that can be game changing and really help you strengthen some of those important relationships. So, Sanna, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's an important topic, and there's so much disconnect in the world right now. Everybody likes to blame their devices and social media. I feel like that's part of the problem, but it's more of a symptom of our disconnect, and that we've not really valued that connection to each other the way we might have benefited from. And as a result, we haven't developed the skills to find connection and create connection and nurture connection with each other. So this is a really important topic, and especially given the research that says that up to 60% of adults have reported experiencing significant loneliness. That's just so sad. And so this is really a topic about connecting despite our differences, right, Scott?
Oh yeah, I think it's understood. If we're going to really truly live our happiest, healthiest lives, we need to have good relationships with people. And sometimes people will say, "Well, I'll pick those people." There's certain people I want to have good relationships with, other ones I don't, even though they're in my family or they're in my friend group. And I think what you're going to realize, you're going to hopefully learn from this conversation is there's probably more people than you realize that you can actually have a happy, healthy relationship with if you truly give it a chance. And so many people are quick to cut people off or to tune them out. And I like to say I have this mindset that every single person on this planet is here for a reason. Everybody's special. And if you can take the time to understand that specialness in the person, I think you'll be amazed, how great a relationship you can have with them.
So what's at the root of others not making sense, Scott? What do you think?
Well, I think, a lot of times it's literally people who just drone on and they think they know something about everything, or they just talk and don't let other people speak. I mean, they drone it on and on and on. I've got people like that in my life that aren't not necessarily so self-aware of what impact they have on a relationship or on a conversation. But I also have learned over time that a lot of it is actually may not only be my perception, but it's but I'm other people in my friend group or whatever, my family might have a similar perception. But it's amazing to me what I've learned over time is that I can actually impact that conversation. I can impact positively my experience with those people, and I can feel better, and they can feel better in the conversation. One thing that I have. One technique I've used, and I mentioned quantum thing because it's such a powerful program. One of their principles is a concept called listening from not knowing. And I think a lot of times we feel like people are droning on, either they're saying the same thing they always say, or they're just they're talking and they're not really caring if I'm what I'm thinking, or if they're helping me. But if you listen from not knowing to a person, let's pick a family member that you've heard speak 1,000 times. I mean, you just you're so comfortable with them, you just don't feel like that you're getting much from the conversation. But if you listen to them from not knowing, it's really like listening to them the first time you act like that's the first time you met them. Like think about when you meet someone for the very first time. You don't know much about them. You might have heard of something about them, but you really have never like had a chance to hear what they have to say. And I think almost always we're curious, like what's that person like, and what's in their mind. It's just amazing the first time you meet somebody, and if you can treat every conversation like it's the first time you met somebody, I think you'll be amazed. Um, I've tried it out with a lot of people, and, one of the things, you can do is simply just literally, be curious about what they're saying. Someone who might be droning on about the same thing they've talked about 50 other times, you know, ask them, interject, ask them a question a minute or so into it. Like, because I bet you there's some part of it that you haven't dug deep with. And if you just ask a question out of curiosity, sincere curiosity especially, I think you'll be amazed how it becomes a very different conversation. And actually, you very well may learn something very beneficial about the person or about the topic, and and just keep asking questions. And you actually may have the opportunities to interject things, but I think the big thing is don't let it be the same conversation you've heard 50 times. Do your role to make it a new, fresh conversation. So, Sana, what's your thoughts on this?
I think it's brilliant, Scott. I love it. And I wish I'd thought of that back when my parents were alive, because, I'd call home and it would be pretty much the same conversation. Mom would have whole grain toast with peanut butter and banana, and I'd get the same description every week. And I wish I had thought about that. So thank you. That was brilliant. I want to ask though, what happens if they're talking and maybe it's not new, but it's literally not making sense? Like 1 + 1 = 3, and really asserting that and doing so in a way that you might even feel is harmful for themselves or other people. What do you do in that scenario where they're really just sounding like they're not connecting the dots, or they're not dealing with reality or whatever?
Yeah, you bring up an important topic, because I think a lot of times it's not just the droning on, but I think that another situation is when people are talking about things that you don't like or you don't believe, and how do you tolerate that? How do you waste your time with that? And how do you get through that? And I think there are elegant ways to change the conversation. So, I think some people will take it personally that, they really will, almost turn themselves off when those things are going on. But I think we have the opportunity to basically change the conversation. I mean, somebody's talking about politics, you don't like their perspective on things. It feels like 1 + 1 = 3. Well, you know, what are you doing this weekend? What's your next trip? I mean, there's a gazillion things you can bring up. And I think that's the thing that people forget. They actually have the power to create a great experience with other people. And the funny thing about it is some people, might be sitting here right now thinking, well, that's rude. You're just trying to change the topic. Well, first off, it's not something that's good for the conversation. It's not good for the relationship. You're not enjoying it. At the same time, if you ask someone something else about themselves, they're going to usually be happy to talk about it. Now, you may be saying, well, they're just talking about themselves the whole time. Well, I think that's the other thing is change the topic to something that's more appropriate, but then ask some questions, get involved in it. Don't let that person monopolize it. You can speak up, you can participate. And I think so many people resign themselves, especially people they're close to, people they've talked to so many times, they resign themselves to just like, I've got to deal with this person for 10 minutes. I've got to call my mom or my dad for 10 minutes. That's check. That's I don't that's not my son or daughterly duty this week. But if you could actually take it from the perspective that your parents aren't going to be here forever, and it's actually a gift that you get a chance to speak to them. And guess what? They may have had butter toast again for breakfast, but there's probably a lot of other things. They probably watched a TV show. They probably saw something on the news. They probably did something in the garden. I mean, get curious with them and appreciate them, and you'll be amazed where the conversations and relationship can go.
Well, and I also think with people that drone on, I like to try to say, "Oh, hey, Scott, how do you feel about that?" Like direct the question to somebody else and let somebody else have a chance to say something. Has it ever occurred to you, happened to you where you've change the subject, try to change the subject with somebody, and they just double down on the original monologue.
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, there's always going to be situations like that. And all I can say to that is I encourage you not to give up. I mean, sometimes people are so passionate about the topic, they don't feel like they've completed their thought. They just so much want to help you. And I just encourage you to always think, first off, again, people are special. They've got their own perspective. There's some value there. So just don't don't take it personally. They're trying to. I think most people are trying to help you with what they're saying. They're trying to convince you. They're trying to make your life better. So don't take it personally that they're persistent. I also think that there are ways, again, like to still redirect the conversation. I mean, you just think about what they're saying and maybe even get curious for them to give you some examples. I mean, try to take the conversation to places that you've never been. Um, Me personally, when someone has a different perspective than me, I truly am curious. I mean, I people in my life, again, I think they're special. I think they're unique, and if they're really thinking something different, like maybe I'm missing the boat. Like, let me understand more, or even when I'm pretty sure I'm right, I'm really curious how a great person like that can have that perspective. Like take them to a place where they maybe hadn't even told you before. Like, why are they thinking that? What life experiences are what. So I just think there's so many ways to take the conversation to make it fresh, to make it interesting, and to make it relationship building.
And do you ever say, well, I don't agree with that?
I think that's fine. Um, I think again, how you say it, right? I mean, you can say it in a way that makes them feel stupid or makes them feel bad, makes them feel disrespected, or you can say, "Hey, I appreciate that. I feel differently. Would you interested in hearing my perspective?" They may say yes, they may say no. But I think there's a way to do it in a respectful way so that they know where you stand and you feel like you've been true to yourself, and who knows where the conversation goes from there. But I don't think you have to just sit there and just just take it if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, yeah, because sometimes it can be viewed as um, concurring, right? If we don't challenge or say that we disagree with a belief that we view as offensive. But I do agree that like the listening, and especially if we use the reflective, empathic listening, to say, oh, in other words, you blah, 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 and you summarize what they said and how they feel. Sometimes that, especially if somebody's really emotional, it can help them wrap it up, like find closure because they're just looking to be understood. And that can, the research shows that that also helps people. It can help people feel better. So that can be a real gift when you're willing to do that. I find I have to be calm myself. Like if I'm reacting to what they say, it's really hard for me to do that in a way that sounds sincere. So I know better than to do that now. I find what can be challenging though is when people really, as you say, go on and on. And I try reflective and empathic listening, and then an hour later, it's still we're still in that space, and then I'm just exhausted.
Yeah, well, that's where I encourage people not to sit there for an hour because sometimes people do, and that is, I think, exhausting listening. Um, and again, if someone's saying something offensive, I mean, I think you perfectly have the right, and you should say, I really don't want to talk about that. So I don't think you have to just take it. But I do think one of the challenges people have is when people are talking, instead of really listening, deeply to what that person is saying, they're usually forming opinions and they're almost very quickly forming responses. And another uh, quantum think principle is listening, is being in one conversation. And I think a lot of times people are not really listening for intent and listening deeply. They're actually listening to how does it make me feel and what do I need to how do I need to respond, how do I and so there are actually two different conversations. The person talking and then there's the person conversation in your head, and it takes away from the real true opportunity to connect with that person. And so if you can if you can develop the skill to control yourself so that you're not just constantly in your head responding, you're actually like truly listening to what they're saying, taking it in, trying to appreciate this good person, and then when they're done, all right, now how do you respond? Maybe you got to take a few seconds or maybe even a minute. Let me just think about that. But if you can keep those conversations separate, you'll be amazed being in one conversation how powerful it can be and impactful to the relationship.
Yeah, that's some really great advice. Is there anything else you want to add on this?
Yeah. I just, I want to just reinforce so much of it has to do with how you come into the conversation with that person. And if you can truly in your heart believe that they're a good person, they might think totally different stuff, totally weird stuff, totally even some offensive stuff to you. But if you can truly believe that they're special, that they're here on this planet for a purpose, and their perspective may not be something you agree with, but it's important perspective. It's something you should try to understand. I just think you can have great relationships with everybody, and I really encourage everybody to do that. I have this vision that we have peace on earth one day. And it's really hard to have peace on earth when you can't get along with people. You can get along with a lot of people, but there's those people I can't get along with, or those people I got to cut out of my life. I just encourage, if we're truly going to have peace on earth, we all got to get along. And so much of getting along is to truly connect with people at the conversational, the relationship basis, and it's appreciating that we're all different for a reason. I mean, if we were all the same, can you imagine how boring this place would be? And can you imagine how few things would be actually innovated, how few things would be, invented and created that would make our life better? I mean, what makes our world so wonderful is that all these people like to do different things, they have different experiences, and they just all this beautiful, I call it music and harmony is created. And if you could have this mindset that different is actually good, it's amazing how peaceful, harmonious, joyful relationships you can have.
Well, I just feel like you're exemplary at this, Scott. Like you always come in with, I wouldn't say always, 99% of the time, I just see you having a peaceful inner world and you are so appreciative of everybody around you. And you are never quiet about that. You're always generous with your appreciations and it creates a container for joy. So thank you for sharing your perspective. And I think this is a really great secret sauce and strategy that you use to practice what you preach here.
I appreciate it. I will just say, I don't think I'm anywhere close to 99%. I am work in progress, but I do think it's something that I'm able to do a lot. And every year, every month, every week, every day, I try to do better. And I can tell you this much: there's a lot of people in my life that I have a lot better relationships with, a lot better experiences with, and I think they have a lot better experiences in relationships with me because I've been able to utilize these techniques, and they're very powerful. And just encourage everybody to realize they have the opportunity, they have the strength, they have the skills to truly have wonderful relationships and have wonderful lives with people.
Well, we're more equipped to do so now. So thanks, Scott. Thanks, everybody, for
Yep.
listening.
Yep. Wishing you the best you. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Best You podcast. We hope today's conversation sparked some new ways for you to cultivate your inner peace, connect meaningfully with others, and embrace the joy of living in harmony. Remember, being the best version of yourself isn't a destination. It's a daily practice of growth, reflection, and kindness to yourself and those around you. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love it for you to subscribe, share it with somebody who'd benefit, and leave a review to help us spread the message of peace and joy. Stay connected, stay inspired, and we'll see you next time on The Best You.